Hey everyone, McGregor Card here, and in this video we're going to finish our build of the Emax Hawk Pro by installing the video transmitter, the Canopy, and a GoPro mount, and optionally a GPS receiver. Now not every build requires a GPS receiver, but on this one we decided to go with it. The benefits of having a GPS on board are, it gives you telemetry on how fast your quad is going and what your altitude is, and also gives you the added benefit as if you get in trouble you can flip a switch or have it fail safe to a return to home mode where it will fly back close to the location where you took off from. In our testing of the Emax Hawk 5 Pro, we've gotten a little over a mile range when it was equipped with a crossfire receiver and with a stock VTX. And when flying out that far, it's very helpful to have a GPS receiver installed to give you the return to home arrow and GPS coordinates in case you get into trouble. It also allows you to use GPS return to home in case you need it. The GPS module we'll be installing is the VTX Systems M8Q-5883, which can be found in our list of parts in our kit page. To install it, we'll need the GPS receiver, the cable that comes with it, and the shrink wrap tubing that comes with the module. Now to figure out the right cable length that we need, what we're going to need to do is take the Canopy and figure out where we want to mount the GPS unit. It is possible to mount it right here, but we've found that we get better results when we mount the GPS receiver on top of the GoPro mount. This gets it up and away from the other antennas so it has clear reception to pick up GPS signals. So go ahead and plug in the cable to the GPS receiver, set it on top of the GPS mount, and route the cable down and around to figure out what length of cable you will need so you don't have tons of excess. Now the cable will be soldered onto the bottom of the flight controller, so I've got about this much length till I get to the flight controller, so I'm going to add about an inch to an inch and a half of extra length so I know I have enough cable to solder to the bottom of the board. Go ahead and cut the cable here, then strip off about 1/8 of an inch on each of the wires. With the wires stripped, go ahead and tin them with your soldering iron and solder. Now if you look closely at the GPS receiver, you'll see these labels on one side. This is the side you want to plug the cable into. The wires we will be connecting to the flight controller are going to be the 5-volt, ground, RX, and TX. We're going to go ahead and do that right now. So remove the flight controller and flip it over. If you want, you can unplug the cable going to the speed controller and unplug the connectors going to the camera. This can make the installation a little bit easier. The pins we'll need to solder to are the 5-volt pin, the negative pin, and then the signal wires we're going to solder to TX4 and RX4. So let's go ahead and solder the power first. Solder the red wire onto the 5-volt pad. And the black wire onto the ground pad, or the negative pad. Then take note of which color wires are going to the RX and TX on the GPS receiver. Now the RX coming out of the GPS receiver is going to need to go to the TX UART pad. So in this case, the wire color is yellow, and we're going to solder that to the TX pad on the board on UART4. Go ahead and tin TX4 and RX4 we're going to solder the yellow wire first, which will go to the TX pad on UART 4. Now look at the GPS receiver and note which color wire is going to the TX. In this case, it's the blue wire. So we're going to solder the blue wire to the RX pad on the flight controller. And in this setup, we will not need the white or the green wires, so we can go ahead and clip these off so they don't short to anything on the board. So now the GPS receiver is attached to the flight controller. We can now reattach the flight controller to the rest of the drone. Plug in the ESC cable, then plug in the camera, try to route your wires so that they won't get pinched between the standoff and the flight controller when you put the flight controller back on. When you're done, it should look something like this. Now that our GPS receiver is installed, we're going to give it an extra layer of protection by putting heat shrink over top of it. Get the heat shrink that came with the GPS receiver, measure it out so that it will overlap the cable side and the other side, and trim off the excess. This should be about 1 inch to 1.5 inches length. Open up the heat shrink and slide it over the GPS receiver. Put the GPS receiver in the middle of the heat shrink, and then using a hairdryer, heat gun, or cigarette lighter, shrink the heat shrink down over the GPS receiver. If you're using a cigarette lighter, make sure you don't hold the flame on any given spot for too long. Try to keep the flame moving. Now that that's done, we'll go ahead and secure the flight controller into place and install the VTX. To secure the flight controller, we'll use a 4mm box wrench and these 2 larger standoffs out of the hardware kit. You'll put the larger standoffs on the front 2 posts of the drone. Tighten them down finger tight, but not too tight because you don't want to strip them. Then you can take these last 2 smaller standoffs and put them on the 2 posts towards the rear of the drone. Now, to mount the VTX, we'll need these 2 small plastic washers that came in the hardware kit and the VTX itself. We'll place these washers on the front 2 standoffs, and we'll place the VTX down on top of the flight controller and receiver. These little pins will go into this connector. Let's go ahead and install the VTX. Then we'll use these M2x4 screws to secure the VTX into place. Get your 1.5mm hex driver and install the screws on top of the VTX. Get them down finger tight, but don't over tighten because you don't want to strip the stand off. Now that that step is done, we can go ahead and prep our canopy by installing our SMA to MMCX pigtail. Take the nut and washer off of the SMA connector, put it through the hole on the back of the canopy, use the washer and nut, and tighten it down to hold the SMA connector in place. It's a good idea to use a pair of pliers or a wrench to snug the nut down. With the pigtail installed, we'll next move on to installing the GoPro mount. To do this, we'll need the hardware that came with the GoPro mount. We'll need 2 of the M3 screws and 2 of the red nylon lock nuts that came with the GoPro mount. First, check to make sure that the holes are clear on the GoPro mount. Sometimes they don't always get the support material out of these holes. To do this, just get one of your hex drivers and push it through each of the holes to make sure they're clear. Then place the red lock nuts into the inside of the GoPro mount. You can use one of your hex drivers to help align them to go into their holes. With the nuts installed, go ahead and put the GoPro mount on top of the canopy and use the 2 M3 screws that came with the GoPro mount and put these up through the holes on the inside of the canopy. Use your 2mm driver to screw them into the nuts on the GoPro mount. It can be a little bit tricky to get the screws started into the nuts because they're kind of on a funny angle relative to the GoPro mount. You might need to put some pressure on the nut on the inside of the GoPro mount to get it started. Go ahead and tighten these down so that the nuts become countersunk down into the GoPro mount so you can slide your GoPro in and out and the nuts won't scratch the bottom. Now, not every build requires the GoPro mount, but we recommend it even if you're not going to fly with a GoPro. If you crash and need to flip over, having the GoPro mount will help raise either the front, back, left, or right off the ground so that you can effectively do a crash flip. Go ahead and plug the MMCX connector into the VTX. Push it in until it clicks into place. Put a little S-bend in the VTX cable. Then place the canopy onto the rear posts. You might have to move the camera up a little bit to get it into place. Then push the canopy down so that it seats all the way down. Now we can go ahead and secure the canopy by using these 2 red lock nuts and our 5.5mm box wrench. We put these on the 2 posts at the back of the drone Get these finger tight, but do not over tighten because you do not want to crack the canopy. Then we'll need to secure the canopy and the camera by using our two M2x6 screws and our 1.5mm hex wrench. You will need to move the camera into place so that the holes on the camera align with the holes going through the canopy and the camera mount. Use a pair of tweezers if needed to help get the camera into place. Once the holes are aligned, install the screw. And again on the other side. Now if you're just starting out, we recommend having the camera at its lowest position that it will go inside the canopy. You can always adjust this later by loosening these two screws, moving the camera to the angle you want, and tightening them back down again. Now that the canopy is secure, we'll go ahead and secure our GPS receiver to the top of the GoPro mount. To do this, I like to use a little bit of double-sided sticky tape on the underside of the GPS receiver. And then I use vinyl electrical tape to help make sure it won't come off. I also use a little electrical tape to secure the wires to the back of the GoPro mount. When you're done, it should look something like this. The GPS receiver will be nice and secure on top of the GoPro mount, and the wires will be ran nicely down the side and underneath the canopy. Then, go ahead and install the video transmitter antenna onto the SMA connector. Now that the build is done, all we have to do now is plug it into Betaflight and do the initial setup, configuration, and motor testing. If you have any questions, definitely let us know, and have fun flying.